morning. Happy Sabbath. Just have to apologize in advance for my voice. I'm going to do the best I can. And I have a backup video just in case, but hopefully we don't have to go there. Thank you, Pastor Spano, wherever you are, for letting my husband and I come today to talk about something that we've become pretty passionate about. Right. Figuring out where we are here. So my name is Mindy. I guess kind of started before my husband and I were married. We both had talked about doing some mission work, and we're excited about doing anything that involved helping people, but we just didn't know what that looked like. We're very active people. We have 3 kids, small kids, who are here. Leah, Silas, and Caleb. They're 10, 9, and 7. Is that right? That was last year on top of Mount Bachelor. That's kind of who we are. But before my husband and I got married, we wanted to do some adventure, some helping people. And what ended up, we found a website after we were married. It was called More Projects. It was a free medical clinic down in Peru. And for me as a nurse, it was perfect. And so I went down to Peru, actually took my kids a couple times. I fell in love with the people and the ministry down there. And my kids loved it, of course, to play with other friends and to find creatures. So then I told Hans, I said, "You got to come down to Peru. It's great." And, let's just say the fascination wasn't the same for him as it was for the rest of us, because he's a builder, developer, and it wasn't what was needed. It was more medical. So it was kind of, in a way, a frustration for me, asking God, what is your plan for our lives? Because we need to do something that we can do together. And it was about that same time that we came across an organization that was working in Portland, or they are in Portland, that they were working in Rwanda. They are called These Numbers Have Faces. And we had a mutual friend who kind of got us acquainted with them. They basically said, "You guys are Adventists, right?" And we're like, "Yeah." They're like, we're working with some of the smartest kids in Africa, in different countries. But in Rwanda, it's interesting. So the smartest kids in all of Rwanda are coming out of Congolese refugee camps, and they're all Adventist. And in fact, most of the people in the camps are Adventist. And it turned out that there had been a family from these same camps who was immigrated to Portland, and we met that family. And after hearing their stories of being refugees in Rwanda for over 20 years, we started to have quite a few questions. The thoughts of the Adventists in the camps kept coming back in our heads. Who are these people? Why are they refugees? Why are they Adventists? Just why hadn't we ever heard about it? It was kind of caught our attention. I'm sure most of you, if not all of you, have heard about the genocide that happened in Rwanda in 1994. I think most people, sorry, I forget that I have to run the clicker and talk, so I'm a little bit behind. I'm going to speed up here. The genocide that happened in 1994, I guess I didn't really understand it until we started diving deeper into Rwanda as a country. But I think a lot of people understand that close to 1 million people were killed, arguably 800,000 to 1 million, in the span of 100 days, when neighbors literally turned against neighbors or brothers against brothers in an ethnic battle. But what a lot of people don't understand or know that 25% of the population in Rwanda at the time of the genocide were Adventist people. The dominant ethnicities were Hutu and Tutsi. The tribes had always been a part of East Africa, and had lived in relative peace until Belgian colonization came and sought to give a preferential treatment to the Tutsi tribe. The Belgians conducted a census in 1933 that issued ethnic identity cards, labeling if you were Hutu or Tutsi, and it actually didn't even depend on your descendants or who you were anymore. It kind of became more like how wealthy you were as a person. And if you owned 10 or more cows, you were a Tutsi. And if you had fewer than that, you were a Hutu. And they'd also judge it based on different features on their body, in their face, the length of their arms. And so you could have one family that one brother was a Tutsi and the other one was a Hutu. But because a lot of the Adventists in the country of Rwanda were good businessmen, many of them had been categorized as Tutsi. This quote from a person named Carrie Zukas, it was online, so it has to be true. Belgium, sorry, it's not true, kids. I'm trying to figure out where I can read it the best. Belgians struck up a quick liking with the Tutsi minority. Because of this, they created a strict caste system, something that had never been before existed in Rwanda. This created resentment and tension. When Belgium left in 1959, all hell broke loose as the Hutu majority rioted and drove many Tutsi out of their own country while killing many others. From that point forward, the Hutu majority reversed the caste system, making the Tutsis the lower class. While the actual genocide took place in 1994, because of the havoc Belgium wreaked throughout the 20th century, Tutsi had been horribly mistreated, exiled, tortured, discriminated against, and killed with no repercussions on a daily basis since 1959. We think of the genocide as happening in 1994, but a lot stemmed up to that. And even though the Tutsi were the ones in power originally, all that changed as soon as Belgium left. So on the night of April 7, 1994, the Hutu president's plane was shot down over the Rwandan capital of Kigali. And this was quickly preceded by a swift and well-planned attack against all Tutsi in Rwanda. Because of the high population of Adventists in Rwanda, and many Adventists were killed during the genocide. It's estimated 200,000 Adventists were killed. In just over a week from when the genocide began, nearly 3,000 Adventists were killed at the Muganero Adventist Hospital in western Rwanda. Militias were finally beaten back by the Rwandan Patriot Front through Kigali, around 100 days. But after that time when the Rwandan Patriot Front began to bring a peace back to Rwanda, the perpetrators of genocide began to fear for their own safety and lives because of the crimes that they had committed. And so they began fleeing Rwanda by the hundreds of thousands. And it's even estimated in the millions, people who had committed crimes who were afraid they were going to be put in prison for the rest of their life or killed. And so they fled into neighboring countries like Tanzania, Zaire, and Uganda. When they got to a place in Zaire, which is now the Democratic Republic of Congo, they found the same tribal system that existed in Rwanda. And unfortunately, that just led to more violence in the Congo, which was Zaire at the time. So because of the conflict that now was beginning in the Congo, it led to people fleeing into other countries. So we have a lot of back and forth. But many refugees came into Rwanda because Rwanda was now stabilized. And because these people in the Congo happened to be mostly Seventh-day Adventist, and coming in as refugees into Rwanda, they found themselves a refuge at a Mudende Adventist college. So many of the first refugee camp was actually situated at this Mudende college in western Rwanda. Unfortunately, the perpetrators of the genocide who were still in the Congo, they knew about these people in a refugee camp of sorts at this college. And one night in 1996, Interahamwe, as they're called, they came across the border and went to this campus and killed nearly 2,000 Adventists and destroyed the campus. These refugees finding a refuge with their fellow Adventists, a place they thought they were safe. Unfortunately, they were not. After this event happened, the United Nations set up 2 refugee camps closer to the center of Rwanda to keep those coming from the Congo safe. This picture is showing actually the entire church families that were wiped out during this time period. Well, the survivors of the Mudende massacre were then placed into Kaziba camp and Gihembe camp, and this was around the time of 1996-97. On the outside camps, you can imagine refugee camps. They're deplorable places. There's actually no power that goes into the camps, so there's no electricity. There's no way to light homes. There's no running water. People are packed into incredibly tight quarters. The roof is typically a tarp, which has been given to them by the United Nations. The tarps are issued once a year, but not too long. They start leaking, and so it's a challenging way to live, especially during the rainy season. There's open sewage, just kind of channeling its way down the hills. And people live on just over 20 cents a day that's given to them by the United Nations. And that's typically about enough for one meal. If they need to go to town or to take a bus anywhere to see a doctor, they have to basically starve themselves in order to save up. But so the conditions are terrible. We can just imagine any refugee camp is not a great place. But the interesting thing is, after 20 years in refugee camps, the hope that you still can see in the young people's eyes. And in 2009, some of the young people actually came together in one of these camps, in the Gihembe camp. They said, our conditions aren't going to change unless we do something to change them. And so they found anyone who had had an education before they became refugees and invited them to teach high school classes. And so they brought all these people together. They were teaching each other high school classes. So maybe somebody knew math well before they became, sorry, I'm missing a couple slides that I have on my sheet. And if someone maybe was sponsored, had been able to get any kind of high school classes outside of the camps, they came back and retaught all that information to their brothers and sisters in the camps. They called it the Hope School because for once they actually had hope in something. See, in the camps, the education only went until 9th grade. And so in order to finish your high school education, you had to go outside of the camps, which was very difficult. And so they finally have something that they can have hope in. Well, in 2015, the government of Rwanda closed the Hope School, saying that it wasn't accredited, which it wasn't. And they also said that refugees can attend local Rwandan high school. Since the option wasn't available in the camp, they can attend local high schools. The problem is the refugee camps are located on hilltops far away from the closest town. And getting to the closest school meant walking a minimum of 5 miles each way. And especially for the girls who have a lot of chores at home and the violence that can happen along the roadways, it's a real risk. So basically learning as we went and learning more and more all the time, Hans and I came to the conclusion, and by talking with other people, that something needed to be done about these Adventists who are in the camps, who are basically on their own. we talked to the Adventist church in Rwanda, and they said, yeah, we know about the refugees, but we don't have any programs to support them because we don't have any funding. But if we were to do something, they would help us in any way that they could. So Hans and I, along with some of our friends in Portland, decided that if we don't help them, now that we know the story, who will? Will it be another 20 years before someone finds out about these refugees? So our dream of seeing the young people go to school became the fuel for starting Impact Hope. Impact Hope is a 501c3 organization, and we believe that everyone should have an equal opportunity to school. And we've seen God's hand at work, which is really exciting. And we really believe that He wants this program to succeed and that we should be a part of that solution, which is crazy. It's pretty neat, actually, to be feeling like you're being used by God. I guess I haven't really gotten to that point in my life, just like it is how it is now. So in February of 2016, Impact Hope, we became partners with ADRA Rwanda and took out, in our first year, we took out 234 young people and put them into 4 Adventist boarding schools in Rwanda. We got a chunk of money, which helped us get started, but basically, it's only $600 per year to send a young person to Adventist boarding school in Rwanda. And these schools, I'm telling you, they're not like the schools that we're used to seeing here. They're wooden desks, dormitories, more kind of like military barracks. But these kids, they say that we've taken them to Europe because the contrast between the refugee camp and this school is unbelievable. And they're so happy and so grateful. They say, you're not only giving us science, but you're giving us salvation. As in these schools, and I mean, for them to even go to school is a dream come true. But that they're actually Adventist schools, it's just an incredible thing. So that $600 essentially covers all their needs for the school year. The things that any Rwandan student would come with, like a mattress and spoon and fork, pens and paper, Impact Hope provides all of that. And then plus tuition. So the union in Rwanda, the Adventist Union, they promised that they would help us in any way they could, and they actually reduced tuition for us because we were sending so many students. And so we can just be really grateful to God for that. I don't know, I was trying to think of a story in the Bible that I could relate to these kids because of what they have gone through and the things that they've witnessed and had to deal with. It made me think of Hagar in Genesis. She was kind of like these refugees in the fact that she was used and abused and she was forced to flee. But yet there was an angel there responding to her cries, right? Her cries for help and telling her, you're not alone. God is with you. And similarly, we believe that God has heard the cries of these refugees. And in an amazing way, He sent us to help, which is, very humbling, I have to say. Well, each year we have seen growth, and now we're in our 5th year. Actually, because of our growth, ending in 2019, we saw the need to select more students. And each year we've been going up about 100 students here and there. We're now selecting to have a total number of 750 students. Well, looking at the statistics, and I have a slide, but of course it's not corresponding with what I'm saying. There are, and it may be coming up still. Oh, there it is. Hey, I'm better than I thought. Just kidding. So in the camps, there's 5 refugee camps in Rwanda, Congolese. There's around 80,000 refugees. Just statistic-wise, you can find these demographics on the United Nations website. 40% of them are under the age of 20. And so crunching numbers, which I've already done, that means that about over 10,000 high school aged kids are in the camps at any given time, based on those statistics. And we have 750 this year. That's great. I mean, we know that there's a lot more that need our help. And we know that it's truly too big for us, but that's why we're here, is we can tell you about it and give you an opportunity to join Impact Hope. Though we know that with God, all things are possible too. And that's where 1 John 5:14 comes in. This is the confidence we have in approaching God, that if we ask anything in accordance of his will, he hears us. Wow, do you think it could possibly be God's will to help these kids have a better future? We definitely believe that it is. And that's why we can come confidently to God in all of our situations in life, not just in this one, but in everything. Well, nearing the end of our first school year, I had a refugee boy come to me. He said, "Mom," they call me Mom, which is kind of cool, except that I at the time we started, I didn't really feel like I was old enough to be their mom, but I guess it's kind of sunk in. It feels a little bit more natural now. So nearing the end of this first year, he said, "Mom, is it possible that we can stay at school during our break? Because during our break, we would go back to the refugee camp for 2 months. And there's a lot of things in the camps that aren't good. And there's not enough money. So kids end up looking for alternative ways of making money. And then the conditions are rough. They're hungry. Is there any way we can stay at school during our break?" Well, unfortunately, that was our first year. But by the time our second year came around, we had arranged a plan. And so we actually created a vocational program during that time, during their break. And so we took all the students that we had at these different schools and brought them to one location and taught hairdressing, tailoring, plumbing, electricity, culinary arts, and agriculture. It was incredible that we brought volunteers from the States. That's actually my mom. Go Mom. She's one of our biggest supporters. We taught all these different trades, and in really intensive courses. The kids had a blast because they were all together with refugees from other camps, and they created friendships and bonds with not only the American staff, but with each other that I know will last a lifetime. It was incredible, the amount of learning that was able to be accomplished in that short a time, especially in permaculture. This is mushrooms that were grown literally overnight. You plant these things and just, put them in a nice, dark, cozy space, and they literally, the next day you come and they're just poof. And for these refugee kids who see the value of anything, something that they can sell and learn to do to earn money, for them it is priceless education. This year was no exception. We had another group of people come from the States. We've had now 4 training programs, and it's been incredible to see the connection between those people who are willing to come and train students, and some of them taught classes in knitting, some of them taught entrepreneurial classes on the side, some come and play PE sports with the students. Hans got to teach maintenance. I think Hans is in this picture. Yeah, you can see him pretty easily. So people say, "Well, I would really like to come with you to Rwanda, but what would I do?" And I always just say, "Well, what are you good at?" Because the students just want to take any knowledge that we have to give them and something that they can then use for their future. Each year, the kids have done projects around the school, like the electricity or plumbing students will install new showers in the girls' dormitories, or put in outlets and light sockets in places that they didn't exist. Sorry, that was my son and one of our volunteers from Japan. Yeah, we've had people from Germany, Palau, Austria. Actually, last year, students from Wildwood in Tennessee came and blessed our students with lessons in hydrotherapy and massage and different techniques that can help alleviate pain without looking for the nearest doctor. In this picture is the Minister of Refugees for the country of Rwanda. She came to the closing program of our very first training program, and she said, nothing like this has ever happened for refugees in Rwanda. And she was just praising our program. You know, when it comes down to it, we have motives, right? I mean, she may not realize why we're doing this, but the motives that are in our hearts, these are our people. You know, they may be on the other side of the planet, but they're really not that far away. In fact, Renee, this is Renee, we're going to Africa in just about a week. And it's just a couple flights away and you're there, and then you drive an hour and a half and you're in a refugee camp. We're really not that far away from these people. Yet we feel like we are, that we need to do what we can to help them. We feel that they have opportunities that we can give them, and we just don't know what God's plan is for these kids, but it's really cool that we can be a part of it. Ellen White says in Testimonies for the Church, Volume 6, pages 278 and 279, men and women of God, persons of discernment and wisdom, should be appointed to look after the poor and needy, the household of the faith first. Let boys and girls be thoroughly taught some useful trade or occupation. We are to educate the poor to become self-reliant. This will be true help, for it will not only make them self-sustaining, but will enable them to help others. And in fact, we've seen this over and over, where students, as soon as they're able to raise a little bit of money, even while they're still in school, they've taken funds. One academy that had 110 students, they sponsored their own student by pooling funds. And it was incredible. That boy that they sponsored was an orphan boy, and he ended up becoming the head boy for the school. It's just, you know, these kids and over have shown us that they really have the desire to help each other when they can. Well, I just want to invite you. This is Barbara. She's from Newburgh, Oregon, and I think she just turned 84 her last time in Rwanda, and she's planning to go back. This will be her 4th trip back. So we invite you to come with us and share your skills if you so choose. It's my mom again. I just have a couple short stories to end, and I don't think that the volume will work on this, but essentially, hey, volume. While these girls are singing, I should have led up to it, but I didn't think it was going to play music. So before the end of the training program 2 years ago, we had this group of girls come to our guest house. I think it was Sabbath afternoon, and we were kind of in our guest room. There were a lot of volunteers there. And they said, is it okay if we sing you a song? We wrote it. It's about Impact Hope. And of course, we're like, of course, yeah, sure, sing it. We'd love to hear it. Well, after they finished singing the song, and I don't know if you saw the one girl, she wiped her eyes. Literally after this, the camera turns off, but they all started crying. And we were, as volunteers and as their parents, we kind of looked at each other like, what's going on? Why are they all crying? And so we gave them hugs, and we were like, it's okay, it's okay. Well, they were basically inconsolable. And it took a few minutes for them to regain their composure, and we started getting down at their level and said, what "What's the matter? Why are you crying?" And basically they said, "We don't want to go back to the camp." As even they were only going to be in the camp for 1 week before the next school year began. But the dangers that women especially face in the camps is unimaginable. And I think until that point, we didn't really understand. But we've been learning as we go. And for these girls to express their fear of going back home, it made us realize that we really need to pay attention and focus on helping girls especially. After I had gone home, and it wasn't long before I had to return to Rwanda because we had a new selection of students and I had to take their pictures. But I ended up seeing all 4 of those girls back in school. 2 of them were at this one location. And I'm telling you, it was like a celebration because they made it and they were safe. And we were praising God for that. But it makes me think of all the other girls that are still in the camps that are facing violence. These girls were telling us how men will come from outside the camps when the sun goes down. And there's essentially no guards or no security that will stop them. And they'll have their way with different women and young women in the camps. And it leads to unexpected pregnancies or unwanted pregnancies. The worry is that they won't be able to attend school because they have a baby. And so these are the fears that they face on a daily basis in the camps. These 2 boys were Impact Hope students in our very first year. Actually, they were students of ours for probably 2 years. And then they were immigrated to Texas. I was actually texting that one this morning. Happy Sabbath messages. You want to have Happy Sabbath messages on your WhatsApp, you'll get them. These kids they're just so faithful, which is great. Well, these 2 boys, they said, "Hey, we're working. We can make so much money in America." And I'm like, "Where are you working?" Amazon warehouse, of course. But for them, it's too much money. And they called me and they said, "We want to sponsor a student. We want to sponsor an Impact Hope student." And I was like, "Wow, this is so wonderful." And so I looked at which camp they were from. Okay, they're from Gihembe Camp. So I found a bunch of boys, like 9 boys, who are from the Gihembe Camp that are in our program who needed sponsors. And I sent them all those pictures. And then I sent them, I was thinking, maybe they know them, their younger brother of one of their friends. And I sent him one more picture. I sent him this one. This is Merval. She's a girl. And guess who they selected? The girl. I was surprised in a way because at first I sent them all those boys thinking they would want to sponsor a boy. And they said, "We want to take the girl, even though she's from a different camp, we don't know her." But girls have no opportunities to study and to learn. And I was like, you know what? We as Americans and first world countries, we know that the girls can really bring a society up when they're educated. We know statistics. We see those types of things in the news all the time. And so, of course, but even they know that their society, their communities will be stronger if the women are educated, yet it doesn't happen like that. Men and boys, they get preferential treatment. And so these young men decided they wanted to sponsor this girl. And so he was texting me this morning. He wants to send a little care package to her when I go this time. This short video is part of our selection that we did last year because of learning about the specific needs of girls and the fear that they face in the camps. During our selection last year, we decided to take 100 new girls. Well, honestly, it didn't take very long to find sponsors for those girls. And so that brought our numbers to 611. This year, we're also only finding more girls in the camps who need sponsorships. And those girls are actually being selected right now. Some of them have already made their way to school. Because of ADRA and our partnership with them, they are the ones on the ground, and they help select the students and get them to schools. So part of our trip, and the reason we're going in March, is to take pictures of these new students so that we can essentially present them as those in need of sponsorships. But we know there's many, and we just invite you to consider taking on a sponsorship of one of these young ladies. Of course, we still actually have many boys who need sponsoring as well, and you're always welcome to sponsor boys. But I know that there's a lot of a need or a desire to help the women too. Well, we know that the success of this project is not of our own doing, and we're just incredibly grateful to God for what he's done. And we can clearly see that by believing 1 John 5:14, that if we come confidently to God, if it's in his will, which I know this is, he will take care of us, and he will help us when we're helping other people. And so we invite you to join Impact Hope, and we invite you to also be involved in your church family, or to do anything outside of yourselves that you can help other people. I'm telling you, it's the most rewarding thing that I've ever experienced. So with that, I just want to invite you to visit the Impact Hope table after the service. And I just thank you so much for the opportunity to present this need to you today. Shall we pray? Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for keeping my voice strong enough. Thank you for giving us this opportunity to present the needs of your people. And we just thank you for the willingness that you put into our hearts to be a part of this project. And Lord, we just ask that you show us ways that we can improve and grow and help others in our day-to-day and across the world. Thank you, Lord. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.